going on, fam? Back again. See, here's the thing. Fatherhood, more specifically Black fatherhood. That's what we're going to talk about today. The challenges and the triumphs. You know, uh, we have a stigma, that's out there about non-existent Black fathers, absent Black fathers, fathers that just don't give a damn. That's not us. But we still have challenges. And today we got a special guest with us, a fellow father, Marvin Hairston. Marv and I have been friends for some years now. Our kids grew up together. Marv's going to give us his perspective. Also, as every show, we got Carl, we got Brandon. So, guys, as we jump into it, I guess the first question that comes to me, and I'll pose it to everybody here, what does fatherhood mean to you? So, Marv, being our guest, I'm gonna let you go first with that.
First of all, thank you guys for inviting me. Pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Oh yeah.
Fatherhood means a lot, obviously. I grew up in a fatherless situation, so I knew when I had my family that I wanted to be an excellent father to all of my children. So I've dedicated my entire life to my family, being a good role model, being a good leader, being a good provider for my family. Um, more or less gives me purpose, to be quite honest. Lord has blessed me enough individually, and so now my main focus was to try to make my kids better people than me. And that's one thing that my father really, you know, he had a rough life himself, but one thing he did instill in me was to be a better man than him. And so I want my kids to be a better person than I am. So that's what fatherhood means to me.
Okay. So if you were to give yourself a letter grade, what would that letter grade
Checking your
be?
report card.
Oh my gosh. I'm not going to say that I've mastered and I've gotten everything right in terms of being a father. I think that there's something that we can learn, from watching other fathers who've done damn good jobs. So I'm not going to sit here and give myself an A+. But I think I've done good with my family. I think I've done good by them. I think that they would say that. I think that they would also tell you that there's probably some things that they wish that I had done differently or better. But my focus was always just to try to keep them at the forefront of my thought process and to make sure that I was doing the right things that could benefit them. So I know that's not. I didn't give you a great answer.
That letter grade.
Put you on the spot with that.
Yeah, that was
Okay, so we gonna go fail or pass. So you passing. So we ain't gonna do letter.
There you go. I like that a little better for him.
Carl?
Yeah, I would never do the letter grade thing. Not myself. I let somebody else do that. But I think Marv hit it on the head when he said, what it meant to him. For me, it's the same thing. It's more about responsibility and accountability. Once you start having children, your life changes because you're responsible for someone who cannot take care of themselves. You're responsible for creating a viable human being who is a productive member of society. That is your responsibility. And everybody's not built for that.
And I think about that too, and I'm glad that you use that. Being responsible piece it's because for me, the one word that comes to mind is sacrifice.
Absolutely.
And you have to be selfless. You have to find yourself thinking about your kid before you think about yourself. Because as adults, we pretty much know how to take care of ourselves, Carl. But to your point, they don't know. So we're always, thinking, okay, I got to make sure this is done. I got to make sure that's done. So, Brandon, being the only non-father on the panel,
Yep.
tell me, in looking at your dad and other fathers around you as you were coming up, what's your idea of the term fatherhood?
I think it's planting the seed, and growing up, you see yourself that seed in your product of your environment.
and I was raised with my father at home, my grandfather in his home, both sides. So I did have that experience to see what it's like to have fathers in the home, and I'm very blessed and thankful to have that because a lot of people don't have that. So seeing that dynamic there is a good blessing to have that, and you just see the planting of the seed. And reflecting now as I'm late 20s, it's an experience where you start to see more of the stuff that I see now. You start to learn a lot of more lessons that your parents brought to you or your father brought to you on the back end of things. It's like, oh man, this is what my dad, this is going on when I was 18 and I didn't understand it now, but closer to 30, I'm like, oh, I get it. And then, now I can talk to my dad. If I had my grandfather, I would do the same thing. But now you can see some of those seeds that they planted then kind of flourish, and now we're still in the process of that. So I think it's a seed that you plant, and for the rest of your life as a father, you're still going to water that plant if you can, and you should.
Okay, cool. I was looking through and I found some stats, and one just that stuck out at me is the Census Bureau came up and they said that 1 out of every 4 children live without a father in the home. And the thing that gets me is, as Black fathers, there's this stigma attached that we're not around and we're not present. But for me, I can't even say that these numbers are true because, hell, all the fathers that I'm around, we're present.
Yeah, but you're saying in the home. And I think those stats are a misnomer because there are a lot of situations where men and women get in a relationship, they produce a child, they probably weren't in a good space to be in a relationship, so they go their separate ways. But that does not abdicate a father's responsibility to that child.
Oh, no.
And a lot of times, fathers, like you said, the fathers are around. I just don't live with your mother. We don't get along, or we just are not going to make it as a couple. But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to, be at your sports events. I'm not going to support you in your school affair. I mean, I'm still there.
But and that what that goes to in my eyes is, and having been through it personally, when you've got that couple that they produce a child, you go always hear, you watch out who you lay down with.
Yep.
And
Well, me too.
I think we all been there.
so I say that it's always like a butting of heads with situations like that because if y'all don't get along, that's fine. But I've always said that don't try and punish me by not allowing me to be a part of your child, because we have both. We have women that want the fathers to be a part of the child's life, and the father don't want to. But then you got the other side where the father wants to, but the mother is prohibiting. And in those instances, again, being a present father doesn't necessarily mean you have to be at home. So,
Absolutely.
I mean, Mar, for you, with not having your dad in, I always like to say that, when we see stuff coming up, we always say, okay, I didn't have this, but I want to do this for my kids.
Sure.
So is that something that's driven you to want to be, the best father that you can be for your kids?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that when you mention the word being selfless, coming up, I'm an only child, no brothers, no sisters. Had a great extended family, great group of friends when I was coming up, but I was more or less very individual, very self-centered, because I had to survive.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about the younger me. When I was coming up, I had to do for me. I didn't have a big brother or somebody that I could go to. I had a very dynamic, spiritual grandmother who just gave me superpowers.
Amen.
And but I fend for myself. And I had that selfish mentality sort of grew out of that because, my attitude, well, if I don't look out for me, who's gonna look out for me?
Right.
But when I got a little bit older, when I got married, my wife in particular showed me the importance of being selfless and being sharing, because that's the way that she was. She would share. If she had 10 cents, she'd give me 5, and I learned that from her. And then when we had our children, they just became a larger piece of that pie. and we all just take a little bit, whatever we need. And it's taught me to the importance of being willing to share everything and to recognize not about you, it's about these kids, making sure they got what they need.
So what was that transition like, moving from selfishness to selflessness? Because I've evolved to that, and I know it's taking, because I'm still in the process, a while for me. It's not something that just happens overnight. So, I mean, I'm sure it was a point where you said, damn, it's not about me. It's about them.
Again, we were talking about the car.
Mhm.
I've wanted a nice something for myself for years.
Okay.
But I knew I had these kids
Mhm.
that I needed to get through college, because that was a goal that we set for them, is that we wanted them to all go through college and to have an opportunity to live a successful life. Not saying necessarily that the only way you get that is to go through college.
Right.
But the more checks that you can put in the box, then the more opportunities that may come your way.
Yeah.
And so it was more or less being realistic with myself, wanting to be a good father and a good provider, as we had mentioned earlier, and just giving my kids the best opportunity to be successful in the future. And it took sacrifice, and it was it was a sacrifice that I was willing to make, and I'd do over again 100 times.
And I think in instances like that too, because I want to jump into challenges. One of the challenges is when you don't have that role model coming up. So I for me, my dad wasn't in the house, but he was present. But even with that, what I tried to do is to take a hodgepodge. My dad did this good, so I can use this, or I know an uncle that's doing this, that, and the third. So, when you don't have that presence around you, then you have to kind of fend for yourself and develop it on the fly, because even being there as a present father, I tell people all the time, man, this is the hardest job I have ever had, by far.
Yes, it is.
And I think for me, one of the challenges that I have as a father is always worrying about my kids.
Yes.
And I had a friend that told me that they had a conversation with a coworker. They were getting ready to get married, and asked coworker about having kids, and the coworker told them and said, "Well, I suggest you think about that." And she said the coworker told her, "The one thing about being a parent is you always worry about your kids." And when my friend told me that, I was like, "Damn." And I thought about it. It's true. Every day, I'm worrying about them 3 boys and that little girl. Yeah. And I think that's one of the major challenges for me is the stress. That's where that comes from. I don't worry so much about, being that provider, because, having that spiritual foundation, I know that God's going to look out for me.
Sure.
I'm going to be all right.
Mhm.
But the stress that comes with always worrying about your kids. And for whatever reason, I used to think, man, once they 18, you good. Nope.
Nah.
Nope.
Nah.
I know that now. Nope, that ain't happening. So Carl, let's talk about some of the challenges that you have as a father.
Well, that would be one of them. And I think, Marv touched on this too. I'm always, don't worry about me. I got it. I got me.
Right.
Right. We have a little family group chat, my wife and my 2 younger daughters. And, we text when they go out, they'll text, I made it here. I made it here. And they always say, well, Daddy, you never text when you go somewhere. You never tell us you. And I'm like, don't worry about me. I'm good.
Right.
But if they don't text, I'm like, where you at? Did you make it? So it's one of those things where you have to kind of say, okay, well, they're concerned as well. But my worry is that you're okay. And like you said, that never goes away. I mean, whether you're, is your health good? Are you mentally well? Are you, all those kind of things that are beyond your control? Because when you're coming up, I'm gonna make sure you eat. I'm gonna make sure you have a place to stay. I'm gonna make sure you got clothes. But once you become an adult, those those things change.
Absolutely.
You know, and you have a whole nother set of worries at this point. You know, how's your career going to go? Are you doing the right things on your job? Are you, you know, where you want to be mentally, you know, spiritually, all those type of things. So that's a big challenge. The other challenge is not to lose, and we talk about selflessness and, you know, giving up, but also not losing yourself. Because a lot of times you have, you know, like you'll put things on the back burner and say, well, I'm not going to worry about me. I'm going to take care of them. But you still have to have a life too, you know. You know, switch that thing around, baby boy. Daddy got to have a life too.
Yeah, that me time. That's
you know,
we lose that.
So I get when you talk about the car example. When I first got married, I had a Mustang and I loved that Mustang. And I think my wife had taken the pregnancy test. And 2 days later, she was like, "You got to get rid of that car. We about to have a family." And I'm like, "Wait a minute,
not my baby."
You know, right? I'm like, so I'm thinking
the car seat in the back,
and the whole time, and that's what I said too. But the whole time I'm thinking, and I'm telling, you know, at this age, I'm telling, you know, everybody I meet, I'm giving me another Mustang. I'm giving me another Mustang, and I am. But I knew that at that time, for the last few, you know, 18, 20 years, okay, I got to do a little something different. So there's always a challenge in, you know, am I achieving my goals? Am I making myself happy? But I got to be able to fit my happiness in with that of my family.
Got you. So Marv, let me ask you, from a challenge standpoint, you built a successful business. What has that work-life conflict been like for you? Because I know you had to put in some time to build your business up. So you think that was a challenge for you, trying to find that balance, that work-life balance?
Absolutely. First of all, let me apologize for my phone, but today's my birthday.
Oh, happy birthday, man.
Happy birthday, Marv.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
23 again?
I think we about the same age.
We should have got you a cake or something.
That's all right. You can still get it.
Yeah. After the show, we'll take care of them.
We do stuff like that, apparently.
Yes, that was a major challenge. That was a major challenge. But this is where your partner comes in to play. My wife is extremely nurturing. She's extremely family oriented, and she understood that, you know, while I was going through that process, I was trying to make a better way for us. And we just put together a game plan, and she did the heavy lifting, most of the heavy lifting with the children. Certainly during the day while I'm working. But there came a time where her job actually became the priority because she also was employed. But fortunately for us, while the kids were little, she was able to stay at home. She did not work for an extended period of time while the kids were little. So we've worked together and we've had that work-life balance. But I want to touch on something that you said earlier in regards to worrying about your children. And it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop. And I'm going to tell you, we can envision, like I know certainly for me, I envision my kid being in a certain situation and thinking that that's going to be perfect and then I wouldn't have to worry about this, that, and the other. No, it's just a different set of words. You know what I'm saying? In any circumstance. So you never stop worrying. I don't think we ever will.
I want to talk about societal expectations. And by that, I mean, you know, I mentioned earlier about the stigma of Black fathers, you know, we fighting against it. But do you guys ever feel like because of that stigma, subconsciously, we tend to overcompensate in the area of fatherhood? Like, you know, you say to yourself, well, if I'm out in the streets with my kids, I want people to know that these are my kids and I'm parenting them, you know, because you've got that stigma of, you know, the brother with the do-rag and the pants hanging off his butt and he got 4 kids by 6 different women. I know that math ain't math. But so, I mean, do you ever find that is something that subconsciously, you know, it's a behavior that we have?
I'm gonna start with this one because I'm gonna say no. But what used to piss me off because my two youngest are a year apart, so we'd have a double stroller, and I would push them in a stroller, and it used to piss me off that people would go, "All right, Dad, I see you, Dad," and I'm going like, "These my kids. I'm supposed to be with my kid." You know what I'm saying? It's like because
Shocking.
yeah, it's shocking. It's not. It's like this is not abnormal. I'm taking care of my children. Um, and I had to kind of realize where that's coming from. It's coming from a place of people having that stigma that men are not taking care of their children, Black men in particular. Um, even now, I don't do that. I do it in my head mentally when I see, you know. But to your example about the guy with the 6 different kids by the 12 baby mamas, I don't even, if I see him with his children, I'm okay with that. I mean, he's still present in their life. You know, I've seen guys, like you said, pants hanging down, you know, do-rag on, but he's got his kids with him. Come on, let's go get some ice cream. You know, and it's like he wants to be there. Those children, regardless of what you think about their father, he's still their hero.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And
Very true.
that's something too that I that gets me is that, you know, there is a bond between parent and kid. I know some people who, well, one particular incident where my one of my stepsons, his biological father was non-existent, and once me and my ex got married, and you know I was a stepfather, his biological father now he comes on the scene, and whereas I'm the one at home disciplining him, he's in Florida, the biological father, so he's the good time parent.
Yeah.
Oh,
And initially, he and I, you know, we had some issues because he was disrespectful to my then wife. And I had to, hey, man, And we had words. But as the years went by, he ultimately came to me and was like, hey, man, I want to apologize because I see that you're a good guy. I see that you're doing the hard work. I'm not there. And it's not that, you know, we need those accolades. But at the same time, I'm saying to myself, Carl, to your point, whether I'm a step parent or biological, I'm here. This is what we do, you know. And I want to touch real quick, Marv, to co-parenting, because that can be a challenging when you're not with your child's mother. Now I've got, you know, I got, oh Lord, some some stories on that. But I think for me,
I
Marv,
got a couple.
see,
So do I.
see,
Yes.
but
Round
how do
table.
you get to the point though? Because there's always going to be, you know, a measure of conflict. But how do you, or how did you get to the point where you and that other parent, and it came to co-parenting, you guys could do it peacefully as opposed to not having conflict?
Oh boy, I'm going to tell you, that was a challenge. That was a major challenge. I have an older son, which is from a previous relationship. Me and my wife, we have 3 together. My oldest son, his name is Marvin. Great guy. He's my man. But there was some challenges co-parenting when he was younger. And I'm going to say that they were major challenges. And there was some very difficult times for him, for me, for his mom that we went through. And as he got older, he's able to become a little bit more vocal, express his feelings. You get to a point where you can't ignore a child and what they're asking for. And so as he got older, as I got older, as his mom got older, we were able to rectify the situation. You know, time heals all wounds. I know at when you're in the midst of that, you know, I'm mad.
Yep.
I'm angry. I'm pissed.
Yep.
Because I want to be there for my kid. And when anything is preventing you from being there, that's a problem. It's a major problem. So that was something that I had a very difficult time dealing with. My oldest now, he's 33 years old. So we don't dwell on that, but reflecting back on that time, it was rough, very rough.
Yeah. And
to say the least.
I think too, a lot of that has to do with youth. You know, for me, being inexperienced as a father, still stuck in that selfish stage. You know, I didn't necessarily think I was right all the time, but I knew, you know, I'm gonna stand 10 toes down on what I'm saying,
Yeah.
and not really focusing on the effect it was gonna have on your child. And you right on point, Marv, about time healing, because over time, me and the mother, we began to see what the real focus should have been.
Right.
And while you
Right.
can't go back and correct it, you can start at the present and move forward, you know, in the future. One of the things that I had a challenge, and to me, it's still a challenge, is making that transition from a kid to an adult, because I'm still seeing you as my child. And you do what I say, not realizing that they're going through growth, they're turning into an adult. And it's been difficult for me. I'm finally now taking my foot off his neck,
Yeah.
you know, my boys, but I still sit back and I'm saying to myself, you know, wow, man, I have to make sure that I'm, you know, standing back and, you know, parenting from a distance. Because now, if we talk, it's because he's calling me.
Right.
Because I know if I call him, he probably looking at the phone like, damn, what he want now? You know, what did I do now? But what he don't realize is when he called me, I'm looking at the phone like, damn, what do you need now?
Same
You
thing.
know?
Same
Oh,
thing.
boy. So, you know, it's something that, you know, working towards. Watching your father come up, what are some things that you know for sure, whether it was as a kid or now as an adult? What were some of the challenges that you know your dad had?
I think it's the stuff you guys probably seen every day. Being a excuse me, provider, head of household, you know, and then even transitioning whether the financials, the marriage dynamics, all that. I was with 2 kids, so managing 2 kids, a boy and a girl, you know, the differences there. That was the stuff I didn't realize, and that's a big thing. I think a lot of us, you know, younger folks, we don't see a lot of this stuff and the challenges in the forefront. You're just like, oh, this is not fair, blah blah blah, yada yada. Then as you grow older, you say, oh man, a lot of this stuff makes sense, or why my dad does this, or why this happened in this way. So I think it's kind of like you learn this stuff in a reverse order, right? So I learned, you know, why did my dad do this? Why did this happen? So it's funny, like at 18, I'm just like, this is horrible. And then you fast forward to when I was at 28, it's like, oh man, I get a lot of this stuff. So I think that's the biggest thing is kind of, for me at least, and I think a lot of younger people in my age range, right, say you learn it in reverse order. And coming in and pushing on my 30s, I'm learning a lot rapidly from, you know, how my dad acted or what, you know, the mistakes were or what the good things were. But I'm glad I was able to see that and say, you know, okay, my dad had this mistake and he talked to me about it. Let me not do the same thing. But at 18, I'm like, well, let me learn the wrong way. I want to bump my head. But now I'm like, okay, this is better if I learn this way. So spinning it back to you guys, I'm a bachelor, you know, single. I aspire to be a father one day. And keyword I heard was the selfish to selfless transition. For myself and even, you know, women counterparts, we're in that area of like, you know, I'm making money. I can just treat myself. I can go here, do this, that, whatever. I can spend money on my car, whatever. I can do all of this stuff. And it's you know, it's nice, right? But you know, that transition, a lot of people I've seen unfortunately don't do it. So they get in relationships, have kids, and they're still living, you know, the best life, whatever. But for those that want to make that transition properly, you know, to get a leg up, what's your advice to say to this 30-year-old guy that says, okay, I'm single, you know, I want to be a father one day? What's the advice is that if you could have that same conversation at, you know, to a 30-year-old version of yourself with no kids, what would you kind of throw out there?
I'm gonna let Marv take this one.
Well, you know what? I think that instinctually men we're leaders. I think the man upstairs, you know, I have a very traditional household. And my wife, she's a great woman. She's a great mother. She's a great partner. But I think that men are designed to lead. And I think that you don't have to reinvent a wheel.
True.
To be a good father. I think the examples that your father set for you are the examples that you should carry forward in your life as you become a dad. I think that the central focus is to just make sure that you put those kids at the forefront of your mind in every decision that you make, period. You have to understand that once you bring that child into this earth, you have a responsibility to follow through to make sure that that child has any and everything that he or she needs to be successful in life. And that is going to require a bunch of sacrifice and eternal selflessness. Absolutely. But it will be a lot of worry. There will be a bunch of laughs and smiles, but there will be some heartbreak. I can assure you that.
Yes.
We've
Lord.
all been on both sides of that spectrum, right? We love them to death. And I tell people this all the time. And believe me when I say this, nobody can hurt you. Nobody can affect you more than your family. Period. Right?
Amen.
That's true.
It's interesting that, for me, Brandon, what I would say is develop a playbook, take the good when you see what your dad is doing, but you can also, get information, get ideas, suggestions from being around brothers that's actually productive, positive fathers. One thing that one question that I ask is, for those of us that are fathers, if you knew back then what you know now, would you still say, I want to be a dad?
Oh, absolutely. It's the
Yeah.
greatest gift on earth, to be quite honest.
Okay. Because I think that because there's a segment of the population that, both men and women that don't want kids.
Oh,
And
yeah.
they good with that.
Mhm.
And I've heard reasonings behind that. Things like, well, I get to do what I want, when I want. And
Yeah.
what that speaks to is, for me, just on being on the outside looking in, is that level of selfishness that they don't want to give up. And I'm good with that. If that's you,
Yeah.
Right.
It's your lifestyle.
you
Yeah.
like it, I love it. But then for the group of people that got into it and they're like, man,
Yeah.
I have to say that there have been moments where I've been like, this stuff is, I can't do it. But again, I think the thing that brings me back is looking and seeing how you've been able to affect another person's life, where you see your character traits in this. Because I remember talking to my dad once, God rest his soul, and I was telling him about some issues I was having with my youngest. And my dad was very, very passive. He, didn't talk a lot. So when he did, you were listening. And he waited till I finished. He said, well, why are you getting mad at him? You used to do the same thing. And I'm saying, wow. And even to, something as simple as driving. I taught him how to drive. I watch him driving the same mannerisms that I had driving. And I'm saying, like,
Wonder where that came from.
right. And what we don't, I think a lot of times as parents, what we don't realize is them kids are watching everything that we do. Everything, the good and the bad.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So when we're not thinking like that, when we thinking, oh, I'm doing what the hell I want, because I already know my 5-year-old, we going to get calls from school. Gianna just cussed at somebody. And I can't even say, where she get? Yeah, right.
I got to talk to her.
She don't do that. She don't do that at home. But
What happened?
having that playbook, man, it's important. And I think too, one of the things that and I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but it's important as fathers that we keep this brotherhood, because we've gone through things where we lean and talk on each other. We've gone through things where we lean and talk on each other. Because I think what it does is it gives you a sense of comfort. Not only that, okay, I feel better, but I ain't the only one going through.
Right.
Yeah. Takes a village.
And that support, because there's been times you done told me, man, Don't worry about it. It's going to be all right.
Mhm.
Same with us.
Right.
You know, and when you hear that from somebody else, it's going, man, it makes a world of difference.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine somebody being a father and not having friends and family members as a support system, because you setting yourself up for failure.
Mhm.
You can't do this by yourself. You know, question I just thought about, Marv, give me the difference as a father. What's your difference between telling the kids and teaching the kids?
Oh boy. Well, that's a pretty good question there. You know, I think you can tell someone anything.
Mhm.
Like I could tell you that, you know, the sky is purple. All right. I can tell you anything.
Yeah.
But to be able to teach someone, it seems like it's more tangible. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
It seems like the lesson from teaching someone based on your experience, although it may be difficult for them to see, but it seems more tangible to me.
Mhm.
You know, as opposed to just speaking something with no point of reference.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
I think sometimes it kind of, for me, it gets crossed. I remember, and he gonna hate me for this, but I don't care. My youngest son got his car and went through everything. His first car. Look, dude, you got your owner's manual. Go through it. Made sure I showed him the fluid levels. Then boom, changing the tire, the whole nine. Called me. This is a few years ago. 2:00 in the morning. Frantic. Dad, my tire broke. Your tire
How you break
broke.
the tire?
Okay. So I get to where he's at. Someplace he probably shouldn't have been, but we've all done that.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
He's got a flat tire. I say, Emmanuel, you got a flat, just change the tire. I said, where's your spare at? Dad, I literally don't have a spare. Yes, you do. Open up the trunk, pull it back, there's a spare. I said, we went through this, son. Well, okay, fine. What I didn't know was his mother had a locator on her phone. She shows up. Bonnet, the whole nine. It's 3:00 in the morning now. I'm like, what are you gonna do? So I walk him through and I actually help, show him changing the tire. And I said to myself, I know I taught him how to do this, but he wasn't paying attention. And the one thing I take away from that is this joker told me his wheel was broke. Your wheel wasn't
Right.
broke.
It's
You
just
got a
got a flat
flat
tire.
tire.
But isn't that a great example where you told him
Yes,
versus when you were there in the physical?
Oh, yeah.
exactly.
him
And that was my
how to
point.
change that
I
tire.
thought that by
Yeah.
me telling him that I was teaching him, but he didn't. I took it as you just weren't listening. But as parents, the crazy part is a lot of times when we tell our kids stuff, in our head, we know how we want them to do it,
Sure.
Oh yeah.
but they don't do it that way. So
Nope.
then we get frustrated.
Right.
When I think that's probably more on us than it is on them.
Well, I'm gonna give you an example of, and this is one I think of all the time. That's very early on in parenting. And Brandon, you've probably been through this.
Probably so.
A kid comes home, they might be first, second grade, and they're like, "Daddy, my friend," and you say, "Everybody's not your friend.
Mm-hmm.
That's your classmate, but everybody's not your friend."
Yep.
A few days go by, they come home crying because their friend hit them in the back of the head or did something.
Yep.
And they all emotional. And I told, and it's one of them, I told you,
Right.
everybody not your friend.
Right.
So that's a lesson they have to learn. Like, okay, we can be friendly, but there's a certain level that we have to go through to be friends. And at that age, everybody's your friend. All your classmates are your friends.
Oh yeah.
But it's unfortunate when I see adults who have never learned that lesson.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's
Mhm.
worse.
And you got kids that are, and I know that, all my daughters, I don't have any sons, I have 3 daughters. All of them, even the oldest one who's going on 32, was talking to me about her friend, and they've been friends since high school, and they were friends, and the friend broke her heart. Just
Yeah.
just turned on her and was acting out and did all this stuff. And then and I just let her talk. But as she's talking, she says, looking back, I saw, I ignored when they did this. And I, was like, oh, that's just how they are. And,
Mhm.
and she's like, but we were friends. And I'm going,
Yeah.
But you ignored all these warning signs. You're adults now. And I told her, I said, people gonna people,
Right.
Right. And you just have to, you have a relationship with that person. I said, not all relationships are gonna last a lifetime.
Sure.
I said, you guys were friends, through high school. I said, now your careers are taking different paths, your lives are taking different paths. And obviously there's always been some kind of behind the scenes stuff that you just kind of let go because you've been together for so long.
Yeah.
Sure.
So again, that's part of that worry too, because you're like, I don't want you to be upset about this, but I told you, and all about, and I know my parents did. When we were teenagers, hey, this my, and they'd be like,
Mhm.
don't, what time that nigga leaving? I don't want him in my house all day.
You got an Eddie Haskell.
yeah,
They,
like-
they see him before you do.
Yeah, it's much like one of them. Like, oh, don't leave him in the room by himself.
Let me, if I may, Gene, let me pose a question to you guys, because this is something that my wife and I talk about all the time. And that is, can you give them too much?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah. And I think that comes, Marv, from us not having when we were coming up.
That's that overcompensation you were,
Absolutely.
See, and
you were
and
talking about earlier.
I tell,
Absolutely.
I swear I had what, a 13-inch black and white TV in my room
I love mine.
up through high school.
Yeah.
These kids got 55-inch plasma flat screens, the latest video game system.
PS5
They
with
got
the-
the nerve to come and tell me I ain't got nothing to do. You don't get your
I had a 13-inch black and white. My neighbor had on TV. Now I know I'm dating myself.
Oh,
we
yeah.
remember on and it.
We right here. Brandon, I don't know.
Yeah.
We right here. Yeah.
My neighbor
That was a
had
little ahead of
on
me.
TV, and if I positioned my TV just right,
You get them
Get some of
channels.
that signal.
I could catch the picture. Now I ain't get no sound,
Turn the
but I could get the picture.
You thought you was doing something.
So that's a little different. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
They got a big old TV.
They got it. They
And-
got a lot and expected.
Oh yeah, and that I think that's where the entitlement comes
Yep.
from. So I mean, we as parents, we have to accept some of that blame.
Absolutely.
I ain't taking all of it, because one thing I know you got from me is common sense. It may not come up all the time, because I tell the boys, the one thing that kind of guided me. Granted, I wasn't perfect as a child, was that little voice in the back of my head. It was my mother, all 5'2" of her, saying, "Do that ish if you want to."
Mm-hmm.
And if I would have ever gotten in trouble and the police were involved, man, look, take me to jail, because I
Yeah.
can't go home to
Right.
this, because
Yeah.
she's gonna kill me. And now one of the things, and I know, Marv, you've probably seen it, is parents, a lot of the newer parents, probably some of the old ones too, that want to be their kids' friends. Because
Mm.
when we was coming up, it was parents that was drinking and smoking with their kids. We
Yeah.
had some, and
Yeah.
I tell my kids all the time, I'm your father. I don't want to be your friend. We can get there ultimately, as you become an adult and you start having kids. Yeah, we can be friends then. But right now, I'm your parent.
My father was in an organization at his company. They called themselves the Black Professionals, and they threw a Christmas party every year. And he wasn't really a big drinker, but he would go to the party and he would come home feeling pretty good that night. And it was just an annual thing that they did. When I turned 21, I said, "Oh, I can come to the party with you this year." He said, "No, you can't. You're not coming to party with me. We don't do that." And I'm like, "Well, why not?" No. He said, like you said, I'm still your friend. No. We in a different class. We're not doing that. And I'm thinking like, well, what's the problem? But then, like you said, we still have that. We can be friendly. We can talk. We an adult. We can talk about adult things. But at the end of the day, I'm still your parent.
Absolutely.
So
And you have to maintain that distinction.
Yes.
No question.
Yes.
I mean, I love hanging out with my kids. They keep me youthful.
Mhm.
They keep me they try to keep me hip, but that's not working out pretty good. But at the end of the day, I'm still dad.
That's right.
You know, we would not pass in the, no, we're not doing
the
that.
joint back and
No.
forth. Hit this.
You know, they know those bears, and they're firmly established, so we don't have to even go there because we've never ever blurred those lines, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. There is a lot of that.
I'll never, fall into that. I had friends when I was coming up who called their parents by their first names. I was like, where they do that at?
Still.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Eugene would have been like, who you talking to?
And my mother don't even move fast, but I bet she would.
Come at you then.
Well, it was almost one of those things where when someone used your parents' first name, you almost forgot.
Yeah, who was that?
You say Ruth.
Oh, that's my
My
mom.
mom's first name.
Yeah, right.
You know?
But one thing too, when you talk about giving the kids too much, parenting nowadays, you got parents that are letting their children, even from birth, decide things.
Yes.
I'm gonna let them name themselves, and I'm gonna let them, and this is gonna be controversial, but I'll let them decide their own gender. And I'm going like,
Yeah.
that's not. You're immediately abdicating your responsibility as a parent.
Mm-hmm.
You're immediately saying, I don't want to do nothing.
Or you see the
I
little
just want to
girl,
let them grow.
the little toddler
Right,
in
you know.
a wedding dress and cowboy boots, and you out where the hell?
Or pajamas.
You just let them. She wanted to dress herself.
I've gone to weddings and seen the kids come in pajamas. Well, that's what they wanted to wear. Oh my God. Like,
Help us.
yeah, I'm like, what are we doing here? And it's like when they turn around and poison you in your sleep, and you're like,
because you took the cell phone away.
what did I do wrong?
Took the iPad.
You didn't raise the child.
Again, that goes back to what we were just talking about. There has to be a parent in the house.
Absolutely.
And those lines cannot be blurred. There's a clear distinction between the parent and the child. Hello?
I think, and I wonder about this sometimes, watching your kids become parents. Because for me right now, that's a scary thought. Because the three boys, they're 23, 22, and 21. And I would think the worst thing that could happen to them right now would be to become a father.
Right.
And I cringe at the thought because in a lot of ways, they still kids. I didn't have my first kid until I was 31. And even then I was like, I don't know what I'm doing.
But
So
do you look forward to being a grandparent?
no.
Oh.
And because if they ain't ready, I ain't ready. So
You need that 10-year gap.
You need that
10 years.
And once I get to the point where I am a grandparent, hey, I'm gonna be the grandparent that, yeah, I love you. Come on, going back over there with your mom and your daddy.
Because that's what I look
that's what
forward to.
grandparents do.
That's the part that I look forward to. Actually.
I'm with you, Carl. I am very much so looking forward to being a grandparent. We're not advocating for that.
Yeah,
But
right.
one thing that I have stressed to my kids
Mhm.
is to wait until you're ready. I would prefer that you're in a marriage, just me personally,
Mhm.
because that seems to work out best.
Mhm.
But we are definitely waiting until, or we can't wait until we become grandparents.
Yeah. To your point, if they doing it quote unquote the right way,
Right.
because you don't want that discord, and that's why I tell the boys, you mess around and get with somebody now at your age, oh my God, your life is hit for at least 15 years because they gonna take you through it.
Yeah, you have to have at least that common ground of two people coming together. If two people have gotten married, they have an agreement that we have a bond already.
Mm-hmm.
And they should be on one accord before they bring a child into the situation, so that that child is going to be raised with the same set of values. You're not going to have mama doing this and daddy doing this, and if, you and I both have children from previous relationships where the households, I'm sure, were different.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
it was a different set of rules over here than over here.
Yep.
And then, like you said, as a child, that's a big challenge. Once they become mature and once they become a little older, you can start, they start seeing more things. But and that's the same thing. That's what I say about marriage. I don't, some people say, well, we don't gotta get married. Yeah, but that's how you know. Or suppose, you should know we going in the same direction.
Well, absolutely. And if you quote all the statistics, this, that, and the other, it tells a story.
Right.
Children from two-parent married families has a much, much greater success rate in life than those that come from a single parent home. That's just the facts.
Mhm.
And growing up in a single parent situation that I came from, I think that it is important to me that my children are married before they have children. I would prefer that, but they're going to do
Mhm.
what they're
Right.
going to do. They're all adult, but that's the advice that I'm giving them.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the best things that we can do now as your children transition, to adulthood is, if you're going to give them anything, give them that sage advice, because I tell my boys all the time, that's all I got for you now, because my pockets is empty. You guys are out there, you got your own job, you're making your own money, and there is no shortcut to success. You work hard, you bust your butt, and it's gonna pay off. I say, but if you guys, and when I'm giving advice, I say, make sure, even if you're not getting advice from me, that you're getting it from somebody with some sense, not your peers. You got grandparents, you got aunts, you got uncles. If you don't want to come to your parents, because for me, that's one of the things that, as I grew up, I considered to be a telltale sign that I was an adult. When I could reflect back on these lessons that my parents was trying to teach me. And that's, to get into, we've talked about challenges, but to get into the triumphs, that's the one thing that I would consider a triumph as a parent is when your kid comes to me and they, Dad, I see what you mean now.
Right.
That
Right.
right there, that to me, that's the number one term because
Absolutely.
I'm saying to myself, oh, you get it.
Right.
And it makes me feel good as a parent. Oh, well, damn, I did do something right.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
I think that is a triumph among all triumphs. Also, another one I would say is not that we want it, but it's nice when you get is accolades from another parent.
Yes.
Mhm.
Hey, Marv, good job.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Carl, good job. And again, it's not something that we need, but it makes
Sure.
you feel good because you see that somebody that's objective can see the hard work that you put in. And that, it's not important, but again, it feels damn good for somebody else to recognize that.
Or when they compliment your child.
Yes, because
Because you know
Mhm.
where that comes from. It's like, I saw what they did. That was great.
Mhm.
This, that, and the other. Well, thank you. I appreciate,
Mhm.
we've, and I try not to take credit for a lot of stuff that well, pretty much anything my children do. I try to give them their own space. But when people are saying, oh, and, we still do this as Black people, they're so articulate. They present so
Well
well.
spoken.
And I'm going like, yeah, but I'm thinking, yeah, that was a conscious effort. You make a conscious effort
Sure.
to make sure that your children know how to act,
Mhm.
so to speak. So when they're complimented, I kind of take it as a compliment too, even though I try not to show it.
And
So,
you know what I think that comes from too is, and I'm sure y'all probably experienced this as well. Complimenting your kids means they see your kids when you're not around and how they acting.
Mhm.
So that right there, when somebody will say, well, Gene, good child. And I'm like, okay, well, where'd you see it? Well, I saw him such and such. Oh, okay. All right. So he is carrying on, those traits that we tried to pass on to you when we're not around. Because my mother used to always say, I can't say what you're going to do when I'm not around.
Right.
So Marv, let me ask you, what would be your biggest triumphs as a dad?
I'm still a working process here.
We all are.
To be quite honest. But I look at my kids, and trust me, there are a lot of things that I think that they need to work on, that they're still working to figure out for themselves. But one thing that I can say about all four of them is that they're good people.
Mm-hmm.
And I am extremely happy and pleased with the fact that they are harmless. They are God-fearing.
Mm.
They're loving. They're thoughtful. They're considerate. I know that a lot of hyperbole, but they're good people. And that at the end of the day, that's what you want, is to hope that they can take the lessons that you've given them in the home and take them outside of the home with them as they go on their journey to wherever it is life's going to take them. So that's one of the things that I'm most pleased with, is that the four of them collectively, there's things about them, that there's attributes about them that I admire, that I think that they have far exceeded me in, to be quite honest. And I can't necessarily take credit for that per se. I think that a lot of that comes from the man up above. But they're good people. That's one of the things I'm most proud of with all four.
Okay.
Yeah.
B, what's something that you really admire about your dad that you would love to emulate if you're not already?
I would say one thing that I did pick up is the in one word is networking. Other words, you would say the gift of gab. You know, he has been able to establish business or networking relationships very easily. And then I didn't realize it when I was younger, but now it's like somehow through osmosis, I got that same thing. So
Wait a minute, you say you got the gift of gab.
business wise, so
Because I was going to say,
been in a networking way.
okay.
Yeah, in a networking type
I'm
of
just
way.
messing with
Yeah,
you.
yeah. So
Stall him out, man.
I mean, for a strictly business type of way. So he's had a power, you might say, to have established executive type relationships and established businesses on the fly. And I didn't go the entrepreneur route, but I've noticed in my business field I've been very adaptable to network with people, establish relationships, and I don't know how or why, but I said the same thing. I don't know how he did it and was able to do it, but somehow it slipped over to me, and I'm thankful for it. But it has on the career side, it's been a great advantage. So
Okay, cool. I think as we wrap this up, once again, very, very powerful conversation. As a matter of fact, it's so good. Fam, we got another episode for y'all on fatherhood as well. But for this one, I just want to say that as fathers, it's a brotherhood. I think that's one of the things that can make us, successful, is, talking to each other, holding each other accountable. Because
Oh,
even
yeah.
though, we cool, if Marv, if I'm doing something, you like, Gene, I don't know, you pull my coattail and vice versa. Because I think that's something that, number one, it keeps us honest. But number two, it shows true love. Because for me, if I got love for you, I should be able to bring anything to you if I bring it to you the right way. And for you to accept it as, okay, man, you know what? I appreciate you for that. But I think that's very important for us. As parents, as human beings, it's incumbent upon us to, always want to pay it forward. And that's what we do as parents. We want our kids to be better than we were.
Oh yeah.
And sometimes in that zest, we may overcompensate, but God knows that we doing it is coming from a good place. And I think our kids, as they grow and they start to give us our flowers, and then we look back and say, you know what, maybe I did get something right. Because the bad things that are within us, we don't want to pass those on. Although sometimes they come up and they come out.
Slip through.
Yeah. But I think once again that fatherhood is a wonderful thing. Again, it is the hardest job I've ever had. I can't speak for everybody else. But fam, thank you for being here. And we want to remind you guys to stay prayerful, stay positive, stay patient, and stay peaceful. See you next time.